Good evening and welcome to Transistance, your weekly news and commentary show dealing with issues that impact the trans and trans adjacent community from around the world. I'm one of your hosts, Genevieve Bergman.
And I'm Emily Michelle. Welcome to the show. Thank you all so much for being here. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. We no longer celebrate that guy who didn't actually discover America, nor did he do any good things for it. So, just a quick note. I'm going to try and see if I can get this right. Just we'd like to take a moment, or at least I would, to honor the people and the cultures and their indigenous homelands here. For me, in HQ West, Transverse HQ West, that is Mechanican and Chumash. Pretty sure I got that right. So just wanted to say that real quick. And like I said, make sure that we honor the people who came before us here. With that, let's go ahead and jump into our first story. Brazil elects first transgender members of Congress. This is exciting news. What's going on here, Genevieve?
Yeah, definitely a big win in Brazil. Two transgender members of Congress were elected about a week ago, and the nation's anti-LGBTQ plus president is also forced into a runoff for elections. So there may be a bit of a change of tide in Brazil. But Erica Hilton and Gerais, no, Erica Hilton and Duda Salabert are now both members of Congress. Both are transgender individuals, and they are members of the municipal courts in their local and respective cities. The basically the push is this is coming from Representative Hilton. We are going to get off the streets. We are going to get out of jails. We are going to get off crack corners and prostitution and start to think about public policies and the legislation. Our mandate in Brasilia will be more organized, more committed, and closer to the people. Salabert spoke out on Twitter saying, "We won the election despite the attacks from leftists, attacks from Christian fundamentalists, and death threats from the extreme right." So I think both of them are a fabulous role model for who we are and where we are in the world and representation. But more importantly, they are now out there and showing us that in spite of all of the resistance that wants to continue to eradicate us, to remove us from the political scene, the cultural scene, anywhere that human beings can be found, um, in spite of all of that resistance, we can fight, we can push, and we can win.
Mhm. Well, and this is huge news too, not just because it's good trans news in another country. Brazil is one of the places that's been notoriously listed as one of the worst places to be trans,
Yes.
and so the fact that they're getting this level of representation is amazing, and I'm so happy to hear this.
Yeah, it's fabulous news.
Slovenia legalizes same sex marriage and adoption as neighboring countries impose anti LGBTQ laws. Another place where, in spite of what's going on elsewhere, they're able to find some good LGBTQ plus uh, rights movement. What's going on here?
Absolutely. Slovenia is now marked as the first Eastern European country to provide equalization in marriage and adoption law for same sex couples. And there are, this is right at that time when Slovenia's neighbors are tightening up on LGBTQ laws and restricting LGBTQ rights and freedoms even farther. So the top court in Slovenia back in July found that banning same sex marriage and adoption violated the country's constitution. And so, with a 6-3 decision by the judges there, they were able to begin to put in place anti discrimination movements within Slovenia. So now we are seeing that carry out into the rest of the country.
And I love this one again. Not only did the Constitution uphold those rights, but they went ahead and passed, law on top of that to just make sure it was concrete. And I really love that. we always talk here in this country about same-sex marriage, and this one takes that extra step and legalizing same-sex adoption. You can A couple who is same-sex can adopt children, and that is such an important extra step and a really important part of this whole thing that we don't talk about as much. And so I'm really really happy to see that they didn't just do the first bit, they went all the way through with it.
Yep, absolutely.
Next, we have Italy, as they adopt new LGBT strategy just before the right wing takeover.
So Italy has just done a change of hands in the executive branch, and the new prime minister coming in is very much anti-LGBTQ. In fact, the prime minister in Italy has been celebrated by Marjorie Taylor Greene and other far right conservative politicians here in the US. But right before they stepped into office, the legislature decided to pass a new strategy for LGBT plus inclusion. It aims to fight discrimination and open up the conversation of appropriateness to LGBT people in schools, universities, hospitals, prisons, sports clubs, and the workplace. It's going to look at, how to encourage places like that to have LGBT awareness courses for teachers and doctors and police officers and prison guards. It is going to strive to put measures in place to monitor media for homophobic and transphobic language, as well as putting specific anti LGBT discrimination clauses into national labor agreements. So this is definitely, the the government looking at the situation and saying, let's do this thing, get this project, this strategy moving forward, and then basically move to a place of now we're going to work this out with the new government, the executive coming in.
So it sounds like this is coming from a place of like sort of a lame duck thing. They don't have any power in this, but they're kind of gearing up for that fight. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's basically it. Yeah. Yeah. They're wanting to basically get their ducks in a row before the new prime minister steps in. And, basically they have their strategy without all of the argument.
Mm-hmm. Get their ducks in a row, even though they're lame ducks.
Yes.
I love it. All right. Uh, this one's a bit of a bummer for me. Let's see what happens when we dive into this one. The first known out trans army officer has been accused of conspiring with Russia.
So I don't know as far as the first known out army officer. All I know is the details that we have coming out. Jamie Lee Henry and their wife Anna Gabrielian were charged with conspiracy and disclosure of individually identifiable health information, and this is coming from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland. Um, Henry is a major in the U.S. Army and came out in what as a trans woman while in the military back in 2015. The During the time of the conspiracy, Henry worked as a staff internist at Fort Bragg, which is really a very special type of location within the Army structure, because it is, first of all, it is part of the airborne training. Secondly, it is where the Army Special Operations Command headquarters are. And finally, there is a major medical center there. Henry had a secret level security clearance, and their wife was an anesthesiologist. Get them all right there, anesthesiologist. Um, and they were accused of providing information to a Russian agent, but the person they were actually dealing with, that they were dealing with, was actually an FBI agent.
Yeah, I read into this a little bit that yeah, what they were doing was providing information under the belief that this would kind of show the level of access that they had to data and the sort of things that they could get to Russian officials if they need if they requested it.
Right.
So it sounds pretty damning, and we'll have to
Mhm.
see how this one plays out.
Absolutely.
LGBTQ plus rights are on the docket as the Supreme Court starts its new term.
Yeah, the fall term has just taken off, and while there are a lot of different issues at stake here, there is one specific LGBTQ related to, bill issue on the docket, and that would be the bill of 303 Creative LLC versus Elenis. Um, and basically, it comes down to, do businesses have the right to refuse customer services based on their religious beliefs? Now, you may be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, didn't we already do this about a cake baker? Well, yes, but there, hold on to that thought because we're going to come back to that individual in just a little while. But the case didn't get the type of response that people were hoping for. And so the the conservatives, political machine pushed this case forward again. It's a different, slightly different case. Circumstances are the same, but the idea being they want to get a more favorable ruling now that there is a more favorable to the conservative court available.
Mhm. This was an interesting one for me. I don't know how much I've expressed opinion on this sort of idea, but I was kind of I grew up on the idea that a restaurant can has the right to refuse service to anyone. Like we've seen these signs in restaurants and businesses a lot, and so you know it's interesting because I understand you not wanting to do to be forced to do a website for a Nazi group or some of these things. And I think it comes down to, like I like to say a lot in other arguments that we were talking about, is social or important service industries like restaurants, food that are important, that people need restaurants. That's a food is a necessity for folks. So
Yeah.
that's something that you shouldn't be able to deny someone service at. Whereas something like baking a cake or a web service, like it seems like you should be able to be more choosy. Um, that's just kind of like what I've always thought about it. So I'd love to hear your opinion on that encounter, if you have a comment.
So this is one of those type of situations that I've had some strong feelings in the past given my previous employment, but right now it's truly a matter. I This is, quite frankly, a capitalist economy. And if we're going to maintain a free enterprise system, then the right to refuse should be part and parcel of that, because this is a matter of, you know, this is free exchange. Um, if you want my services, you have to pay for them. If I don't want to provide you the services, I don't have to. That means I lose your money. That's the only thing that I'm losing out on. So, I'm very much of the mind of saying, no, I will not provide you a service knowing that it's going to cost me. That's just where I am right now, because seeing the capitalist economy where we are, you know, now do we need to go back to the civil rights movement and lunch counters and things like that? Maybe we do. Maybe we do have to have these type of movements. But again, that has to be an economical thing and not necessarily a legal thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I think I would agree with that completely. Kari on the production booth there says that I draw the line at bigotry, and that's the really tough thing about free speech, is that it's really hard sometimes to draw those lines, because how do you bring it down to bigotry and not just like someone's true religious belief or something else. Like we all have our beliefs, and like I said, there are certain things that I would not, certain people I would not want to work with because of the cause that they're
Mhm.
promoting. And you can make different cases for that, but when you look at it on the whole, like it's not really that different. So it's like becomes very difficult to make those distinctions. And again, in terms of public services, things that can be deemed as public services, like providing food, I think that should be a different story than things that are not necessities, that are luxuries, like developing a website for a wedding, or a wedding cake. Again, that is a food, but like not a necessity one. So it's like, oh,
Right.
I don't know, because the thing is I know my thinking is based on a city environment, an urban environment. This cake shop doesn't allow you to, will not make a cake for you. You go to the next one. Again, the capitalist system where it's you just go to the next business and
Right.
find the one that will do the work for you. But in smaller cities, in rural areas where you don't have multiple options, I can see where that is a completely different concern.
Now, I want to take a different tack on on this counterpoint. Um, the Constitution does not protect someone's beliefs; it protects someone's practice. See, it's the idea that the Constitution does not protect your beliefs. We have people in this country who believe harmful things. For example, living in Kentucky, I've known quite a few snake handling churches. They would purposely bring vipers into their church and handle snakes. And there was a time when there were multiple fatal bites that happened within the church. All right. So when we're talking about beliefs, you know, does the government have a right to step in and say you are creating an environment where people are being hurt for your beliefs? If a parent is, if their child is exposed to that and that child gets bit and dies, does that parent have right of recourse to hold that church liable? Well, the belief is that that child should not have died. That is their belief. That child should not have died. Now, does that release them from their liability? Absolutely not, because it was their practice. Their practice put somebody else in danger. Flipping it on its head, baking a cake is not a religious practice. Building a website is not a religious practice. Those are not protected because this is a commercial venture. It is not a religious belief venture.
Mm-hmm.
Because a Muslim, a Hindu, a Christian, and an atheist walk into a web building class together, those four people are going to come out with the same skills to do the exact same thing. So building a website or baking a cake or taking pictures is not a religious practice. If you want to say, I don't believe in that, okay, great. But understand, the Constitution does not protect your beliefs, it protects your practices.
Hmm. Very well put. I appreciate that. Moving on to sort of, we were talking before about the Supreme Court and the how this will challenge our rights. Um, a challenge to Florida's Don't Say Gay law was thrown out by a Trump-appointed judge.
Yeah. So we have a couple of stories involving judges who are pretty much holding to a conservative pattern. And the first one is don't say gay. Now, let me just put this out. The judge did not close this chapter. The judge basically said, look, you didn't provide enough evidence to say that this law is actually doing some form of harm. What you have brought to me is what the judge says. Um, with or without the law, school districts direct teachers as to what they may or may not teach. Plaintiffs do not allege otherwise. They do not assert, for example, that Florida's public school teachers may teach whatever lessons they wish. So, to the extent plaintiffs allege that some teachers or others wish to provide classroom instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity to students in kindergarten through grade 3, they would have to show, at minimum, that without the law, their individual school district would allow it. Yet plaintiffs offer no specific allegation that any teacher would be providing such classroom instruction absent HB 1577. So, basically this was a smokescreen thrown up to push those who had brought an argument against the don't say gay bill, the don't say gay law, to basically go back and reformulate their position.
Interesting, but it didn't seem like there was a lot of leeway in there for them to find, essentially evidence. What it sounded like to me when I read through it was that the judge is looking for evidence that the law itself has affected how students are taught and their rights.
Exactly. And that's the problem with that. It's asking for people to argue a negative. And then the court's going to come back and say, you can't argue a negative. You have to provide proof that something happened. You can't provide proof that nothing happened.
The next article, anti-LGBTQ plus judge rules that workplaces can have biased policies against trans employees.
So District Court Judge Matthew Kazmarek declared that the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission issued a guidance that incorrectly interpreted the June 2020 Supreme Court ruling of Bostock versus Clayton County. The 2020 Supreme Court found that discrimination against gay and transgender employees is a form of sex discrimination forbidden by the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The next year, 2021, the EEOC issued a guidance stating that the ruling required workplaces with more than 15 employees to allow transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming workers to use pronouns, dress codes, facilities, and healthcare practices matching their gender identities. The state of Texas sued the EEOC, and this ruling was the result of that filing. So he ruled that although the 2020 Supreme Court decision declared that employers can't discriminate against workers for their sexuality or gender identity, it doesn't protect an employee's correlated conduct, which means just because this person is a transgender person, they cannot expect to be protected in the use of pronouns, dress codes, the use of restrooms, or healthcare practices.
So he's one of those guys that's basing his argument off of the letter of the law and is including no context of what the intent of the law was,
right.
To protect trans people and the trans people things that they do.
Well, but that's the entire point of the law, is to find the best way to protect everybody. And when you leave a section like that, where it's not just a matter of identity, but it is also a matter of practice. Part of our practice is our identity. Part of our practice is a part of our health care system. Mm-hmm. So, this is ignoring the decision that's come out from the ADA or disabilities, that gender dysphoria is classified as a disability. Now that's going to be challenged too. But the point being that this case is an ongoing and evolving sort of situation.
All right, y'all don't need to adjust your TV sets. This isn't like a repeat or whatever. This is actually happening again. A Republican gubernatorial candidate says school children are peeing in litter boxes. This is coming up again. The same lie. I cannot believe it. Why is this happening again, Genevieve?
Okay, so now we've already been able to trace that this has been just a part of a packet of information that has been distributed to candidates, and it's been fed by an ongoing cycle of squirrel wheel mechanics where these things just keep popping up as talking points. We're not going to go into the whole detail of why the matter of furries and the matter of Therian and the matter of fetish is not at play here. We're not even going to talk about the facts that have been proven wrong, that there are not schools doing this. But this candidate and the gubernatorial candidate in Colorado, two candidates for governor who are out there promoting themselves as leaders for their fucking states, and this guy is an actual doctor. He's a doctor. He is a family practitioner. That means that he's educated. That means more than that, that he has advanced education. And he is willing to spit ignorance and foolishness in spite of the fact that it has been proven time and time and time and time again that this is false. Now, this doctor has a gay daughter. He has a lesbian daughter, and he supported gay conversion therapy. He is a fundamentalist Christian. And he is willing to essentially make himself look like a fool. And you know what? Here's the thing. If you happen to be in Minnesota, I would just basically put out there that this doctor cannot be trusted with any kind of health care for anybody's family, because if he does not do research on things that are absolutely false, there is no way that he is going to be able to provide up-to-date and accurate health information.
Yeah, this is so disappointing because it's in Minnesota, and Minnesota is one of the ones that I've heard is one of the better states for affirming trans rights and for trans medical care. It's so bizarre that this is all coming from a doctor a doctor who's running for government. So like
Yeah.
we could lose both in one fell swoop here. Hi. So moving on to the other person who's spreading these similar type lies, Republican candidate repeats debunked claims about school children identifying as animals, and she accused 30 schools of accommodating furries, and the schools are calling her out.
Right. So this is Heidi Ganow from Colorado. She says that she had over 100 messages from parents from across Colorado mentioning the issue of furries in their local schools. Her campaign also released a list of 30 different schools where such issues had allegedly occurred, although there were no specific details about those incidents. The list was compiled in part by Jeff Co. Kids First, which is a local group that opposed distance learning during COVID-19. It's also a part of the so-called Parents Coalition that backs the campaign. The fact that, again, we have an individual running to lead a state and now outwardly accusing 30 schools of something that has been debunked as a falsehood just tells you that this is an effort by politicians to remove schools from doing their jobs.
Hmm. Well, and the yeah, just basically, and to try and prove to parents that the schools can't handle this, so we need to step in. The very interesting thing that I find is, she continued here. There was a quote here. Yeah, kids identifying as cats. It sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's happening all over Colorado, and schools are tolerating it. That is almost verbatim what I have heard in two other places. One, the Matt Walsh documentary, and also, I believe it was a quote that came up in one of the recent articles we did about this,
Yeah.
this litter box thing. So not only are they getting these, these same themes and theories bandied about in their, um, I don't know, their back end community, the dark web that they get their information from, or however they disseminate the information to other candidates,
Right.
but the fact that it's so close in to a direct quote that we've heard multiple times is really interesting to me, that they're not even really bothering to put any twist on it. It's just the same thing. Instead of being, I forget what state it was last time. I don't think it was Oklahoma. I can't remember, but now they're saying that it's happening all over Colorado, and it's like there is absolutely zero proof of this.
Right.
If it was happening, Republicans and Fox News and everybody would be talking about those specific cases every single night. So it's so obvious that it's not happening because it would be so plastered all over everything. And yet they're still saying it.
Right. But you mentioned, that it's almost verbatim what you hear from other places. That's because it is. It
Mm-hmm.
is. It is a cookie cutter script that is handed out to these politicians by these conservative groups that want to just push and push and push. They don't provide facts. All they do is they provide just a generic template and say, here, take this out, use this as your talking points, and you're going to be guaranteed results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, apparently. A trans charity, Mermaids, was forced to suspend life-saving helpline due to intolerable abuse to their staff. What happened here, Genevieve?
So, Mermaids is basically one of the most recognizable um, trans organizations in the UK. And what they are calling intolerable abuse, the reasoning that they, shut it down, was that it was an endless torrent of harassment and criticism um, that came right at them. They are, the abuse that the operators have to deal with, um, the constant just negative impact of groups that want to take down these useful methods of helping trans kids. We talked about a few weeks ago when um, the Trevor Project was inundated by basically just constant false reports of people from Kiwi farms that basically just wanted to tie up the operators so that kids could not get through
Mm-hmm.
to the helpline. And Mermaid set up this helpline, much like Trevor Project set up that helpline for kids who are struggling, for kids who are suffering and dealing with a lot of the stress of gender issues, a lot of um, gay or lesbian issues that they confront on a daily basis. And so this is a tragedy that they had to shut this down over certain hours and not have that help available as a lifeline for those kids.
Mm-hmm. This is another one of those things that proves the fallacy of the argument against trans folks. They lie and they claim that what they're trying to do is they're trying to protect kids.
Yeah.
That the big issue is this mutilation of kids, and yet they will do things like this where they'll attack and shut down a helpline that is there to help people in crisis, kids in crisis, and it just shows again that it's not about protecting kids. It's not about any of the things that they claim it is. It's the Christian right trying to end transgender. I don't want to say ism, but they want to put an end to transgender identity.
Transgender people.
Transgender people, yes.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's a genocide against transgender people.
Right. And if you are going after a helpline that is essentially there to help kids deal with the stress and the emotional turmoil that they're going through, you don't give one flying flipping fuck about kids. If you disrupt the care that they get, this isn't about kids.
Yeah. And like I said, every argument that you make about trying to protect kids or trying to attack these specific issues are blown completely out the window when you do things like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to the Supreme Court and how it's going to affect us coming up. This free speech case could help the Supreme Court wreck LGBTQ rights for decades.
Now, keep in mind that any, you know, any court that the judge that the any case that the court looks at can possibly be, you know, kicked back down to a lower court. And since the Supreme Court agreed to hear this case, that 303 Creative LLC versus Alennis, you know, it may be a matter of they're listening for this so that they can make way for even more legal decisions down the line. Because this is she found out that if she said that she wouldn't make websites for same-sex marriages, she found out that it violated Colorado's anti-discrimination laws. So she immediately sued the state for that, saying that the law violated her First Amendment right to free speech. And so her lawsuit basically sought to block enforcement of the law. That may be too broad for the Supreme Court to handle. They may want to kick that back down and say, no, you need to deal with this again at the state level, much like they did with the Don't Say Gay bill.
And what is that? What's the overarching implication of that? If they knock it back down, is that better or worse for us?
It could go either way, because in this instance, what conservatives want to do is they want to push as many issues back to the state as possible, but they want to legalize discrimination as a whole within the country. So it could go either way. What will it depend upon? It will depend upon people going out and voting. It will depend upon who gets elected in this midterm. If people are complacent and they say, look, voting doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, the Republicans are going to win anyway, they're just going to go ahead and do this because I live in that kind of a state, then the fact is that you've already given up. And we cannot afford that. We cannot afford to tell the world that we are just going to roll over and let conservative and Christian nationalists dictate how the world is going to treat us. So if we get out there and we push and we push and we push and we get those votes in place, and then once we get those people in place, we start holding their asses accountable to say this is a free country. This is a country where all people who are citizens have certain rights, and you cannot take those rights away just because your fancy little ideas of a religion get in the way of other people's lives.
Mm-hmm. I had a thought there, and I lost it. I'm worried about the dog. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on. Caitlyn Jenner is back on here, says that the radical left has hijacked and politicized trans people by supporting them. What bizarre thinking is happening here?
So, first of all, Caitlyn Jenner None of the things that are said within this commentary are to be a reflection upon the Transverse or any of its subsidiaries, its owners, or its board of directors. Caitlyn Jenner is trash, and basically is gaslighting the entire fucking LGBTQ plus community into saying that the left basically just wants to lift up trans people and say, oh, these poor people, we're going to take care of them, you know? And she is wanting to essentially put us in the place of victims from the only group of people in politics who have tried to make any difference in supporting us, by basically saying, no, they're just wanting to lift them up and use them as a political tool to get more attention to democratic policies and bills. And it's like, you have got to be fucking kidding me, Caitlyn. It's like, I'm ashamed that I read her damn book now. I mean, that's just how bad it is. She has lost her mind on this.
Well, she started out very right leaning and strangely anti trans in a lot of the things that she said, and the rhetoric and the people she supported. So it's
Right.
not a huge surprise, but it's just yeah, it's just strange how much she doubles down on that.
Oh yeah. And this is, I mean, this is not, the thing is that she went on Fox and Friends. They are not her friend. They are not her friend, because they will turn around and they will talk about trans women, all trans women. And then she sidles up to him and is like, oh, you're right, all those trans women out there. That's it. It's all those trans women.
Yeah,
No, sweetie, you are not their friend. They're talking about you. You are just too blind to see it and deaf to hear it and dumb to understand it.
I'm sure that'll get us in a lot of trouble. GOP governor, I thank you for the preempt
disclaimer.
there.
Yeah, I want to disclaim that this was not the Transverse's opinion. That was the opinion of Genevieve Bergman alone. So if Caitlyn wants a piece of me, come at me, baby.
Okay. GOP governor candidate promises to ban pole dancing in elementary schools. Another just twist in brain thinking. Just a weird logic here, applied to a candidacy. What the heck is happening here? I can't even talk about this.
It's Doug Mastriano, who's the Republican candidate for governor in Pennsylvania. He said that there are he is claiming that there are elementary schools in Pennsylvania teaching elementary students how to pole dance. Talking about the sexualization of kids. And what he said was, on day one, and he's talking about his election as governor, on day one, woke is broke. On day one, pronoun games in elementary school are prohibited and banned forever. Must be nice to have the power of language within your back pocket. On day one, the sexualization of our kids, pole dancing, and all this other crap that is going on will be forbidden in our schools. On day one, all the pornographic books that are in elementary schools will be pulled out. On day one and done, critical race theory is out the window. Now, here's the deal. The crowd is just cheering and applauding and living it up because they cannot think for themselves, and he is just spooning the fear-mongering and the hate right out to them, sprinkled with a little bit of the colored sprinkles that you get on those fancy cookies at the Walmarts. But he has nothing to back this up. If there is anybody teaching pole dancing in elementary schools, holy cow, how did you get the money to put a pole up in a school? I mean, really.
Yeah,
the best that they could do would be, I bet you I know what it was. I know exactly what it was. God damn it. They did a dance thing at the See You at the Pole, which is a Christian prayer thing, and that's what they were doing. They were having a prayer thing out there, and it looked like they were pole dancing. So that he needs to take it to the Christians and talk to them about that shit.
Let's go over and talk about J.K. Rowling, shall we? It's been at least 7 days since we've talked about her. She's invoking golden plates of Mormon church founder in a row over trans rights. She's trying to compare herself to what's Smith's first name?
Joseph Smith.
Joseph Smith in her plight against the trans people.
So first of all, I want to say, Heather, don't bring attention to the Mayday poll, please. When they find out what the Mayday poll is about, they are going to flip their proverbial wigs. So J.K. Rowling, who has been accused of being a TERF and a transphobe, tweeted out that those who ask those asked to give examples of her trans antagonistic views, she basically says it's like when Joseph Smith found the golden plates and nobody else was allowed to look at them. Meaning that whenever she says, hey, go out there and find my trans antagonistic statements, go out there and find where I said I have a problem with trans people. So the golden plates are a reference to the hidden knowledge that was transmitted to Joseph Smith so that he could write the Book of Mormon and establish and codified all of the laws that make the Latter-day Saints separate from the rest of Christianity. So she's basically saying nobody could ever see those golden plates. They were only reserved for the special, for those who had the anointing, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's, you know, she's saying y'all couldn't pull out anything. Y'all couldn't find anything where I said that I had a problem with trans women.
I feel like we've seen some. Yeah. I feel like there've been a couple.
I think so. Maybe
just a couple. Wow. Just going right into the denial area. Yep. Talk about gaslighting. Holy crap. Marjorie Taylor Greene, on the other hand, faces ethic complaint after allegedly kicking a teenager. Well, didn't we actually see her do it?
Well, this is the follow-up on that report that we did a couple of weeks ago, where she did seem to make some form of lower body limbic movement that could have intersected with the physical presence of another human being who happened to be 18 years old. So I don't want to accuse her of anything. These are all allegations. But yeah,
this is allegation, of course.
Yeah. So basically, a formal complaint has been issued. She now has to deal with that through the ethics committee. Y'all, the woman pretty much came right out and said, yeah, I did that. And she was proud of it. So I don't know why we have to go through the Dog and Pony Show, but we do have to go through the Dog and Pony Show of the committee. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the fact that she got on the stand and tried to perjure herself when talking about the insurrection on January 6th, you know, I don't know why we should feel like the Ethics Commission is going to bother her any. Ethics is not what she graduated in.
She's found a lot of flexibility with her ethics.
Yeah.
Another article about Marjorie. She says that Joe Biden can't define what a woman is, but in a tweet that she put out to say that, she couldn't even spell it.
So look, I'm not a spelling gremlin. I am not going to get after everyone for their spelling problems. Sometimes when trolls do it, I do it just because I need something to amuse myself because they're dull as dirt and fuck. But one of the things that gets me every time is that spelling woman, WOMAN, is a singular. Spelling woman, WOMEN, is a plural. It actually changes the word to something else. In fact, it multiplies it. But I guess since they don't know that they can be used as a singular pronoun, I guess they assume that women can be a singular noun. I don't know. But she says, in regards to our president, how can you possibly know the power of women with an E when you can't even define what a woman is? Now, I'm going to give Marjorie this much credit for trying to make a funny. All right? I would do that to my trolls, How can you possibly know what the power of women is if you don't know what a woman is? Yeah, that I could do. But this is endemic with the epidemic of misspelling women as or woman as women is a part of the conservative mindset now. I think it's built into their autocorrects now. I think when they sign up on their plan and they'd ask, are you conservative or are you progressive? And if they say conservative, it automatically changes out woman with women so that it happens all the time. Autocorrect every time.
Conservative autocorrect. I love it. So the I don't know if you mentioned the tweet that Joe Biden put out that was her response there, but his response was MAGA Republicans don't have a clue about the power of women. They're about to find out. And so she clapped back with, how can you possibly know the power of women when you can't define what a woman is? It's just such an unnecessary clapback against him. There's no power in it whatsoever. So like, why even try? And then to screw it up on top of that is it's just the cherry on top of an abundant amount of whipped cream. I love it. Yeah. Moving over to Florida. Florida is asking girls to report their menstrual history if they want to participate in sports. I feel like this headline's a little bit misleading for what's in the bit of the article here, but what is going on as we dive into this one?
Yeah, this is a sensationalist title on this one. But what is actually happening is a little bit more sinister than what even the title makes it sound like. So for those of us who participated in athletics when we were in junior high and high school, you know that the annual physical is a part of that. You participate in a medical physical to be determined that you're not exhibiting any obvious signs of physical distress that might get in the way of playing in an athletic event. For female student athletes, that form that's been used for 2 different decades has always asked in a very optional manner about menstrual cycles. Now, the form has also only been used by the doctor to do a checklist, and then at the end of that checklist, they would send a letter back to the school saying, this student is eligible to play based upon my physical examination. The only thing that the school got was the letter from the doctor saying, yes, this is how this happens. The form was never supposed to be released to the school. It was patient doctor privilege. And confidentiality, according to HIPAA standards, were supposed to protect the patient and the doctor in that case. Nobody needed to know outside of that. This year, multiple schools in Florida transferred that form online using a third-party service. Now, when those forms get filled out, they do not have necessarily end-to-end encryption security, and those forms could be accessible to coaches, as well as those companies are vulnerable to subpoenas. So if somebody wanted to subpoena the medical records of anyone from that website, they could, because they are not protected. So this document, which was never meant to be used outside of the patient and the doctor in that relationship, has now been issued by the schools in a practically unsecured format so that a person's private health information could be accessible to people who don't need to have access to it.
Ironic, considering we just did an article earlier today about people's personally identifiable medical information being distributed, and that being a very, very bad thing.
Right?
Oklahoma is banning gender-affirming care for minors at a state-funded hospital. This is a follow-up to the one we did last week, right?
Yes, it is. And this one has continued to grow in information. House Bill 1007 authorized the distribution of $108 million to the OU Children's Hospital in Oklahoma City. This was part of the American Rescue Plan Act. Now, of that $108 million that was going to go to the hospital, 39.4 of that was earmarked for a pediatric mental health center at the hospital. But what happened is that the bill brought forward and signed into effect by Governor Stitt says that the hospital cannot get that $39.4 million as long as it is offering any gender-affirming surgeries or therapies for people under 18. Which, being a children's hospital, they went up to age 24 and did some of those procedures. But under the age of 18, the government said, you're not getting your money if you do these things. OU Children's Hospital voluntarily stopped doing gender-affirming care before the bill was written into law. So this wasn't even necessary, but they did it anyway. They threatened them with a law. They pushed it through very quickly. The governor signed it almost immediately, but the hospital still acquiesced to their extortion.
Yeah, no court challenges, none of this stuff.
No. So when you were talking earlier about Slovenia, their Supreme Court had said, no, we're not going to discriminate against same-sex marriage or same-sex adoption. And then the legislature turns around and they write it into law that you won't discriminate. Oklahoma said, hold our fucking moonshine, and turn around, not only just made the threat to extort a children's hospital, yes, but went ahead and wrote it into law.
Mm-hmm. And this was federal. This is federally funded, federal funding, right?
This is federal money. This is money from the American Rescue Plan Act. This was part of the money to rebuild America because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
These are not representatives. They are reprehensible individuals.
I like it. Moving on, the gender Dysphoria Alliance formed in 2021 as a place to learn, network, teach, and share stories. So you included the website here. What did you want to talk about this one?
Okay, so this was brought to my attention from um, one of our one of our boards over on the Transverse. Either the, I think it was brought to us through um, the mods, but the Gender Dysphoria Alliance, on the surface, this is their mission: to inform the conversation about gender dysphoria, explain why evidence based care is so important, include people who detransition, regret, or desist, and support sex based rights. Now, on the surface, those sound like very noble goals.
Mm-hmm.
But this entire organization, the Gender Dysphoria Alliance, is essentially established to denounce transgender experience. It is there to find alternate therapies besides transition to provide for dysphoria, dysmorphia, or any type of a related depression or other mental illness. So when it says inform the conversation about gender dysphoria, what they want to do is they want to go in there and they want to provide information on what just gender dysphoria is not. When they talk about evidence-based care, they are not talking about transitioning socially, medically, or legally. What they're talking about providing for mental health through the prescribing of drugs, talk therapy to get through those issues of experience, and then support through conversion.
Hmm. Yeah,
This
their
is not.
mission, like if you read their mission, it sounds all good, all well and good. Inform the conversation about gender dysphoria. Okay, explain why evidence-based care is so important. Include people who detransition, regret, or desist. It's like, okay, I didn't think that they were being excluded, but all right. And then number four, support sex-based rights, and it's just like red flag, ding 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 ding. I'm starting to hear it.
So their second issue, explain why evidence-based care is so important. Here is their belief statement about that. We believe clinical practices should be based on peer-reviewed evidence and not activism or ideology. Basically saying that anyone who is a transgender activist is actually not been studying peer-reviewed evidence. That doctors who are providing care for gender dysphoria through transition have not been using peer-reviewed evidence. Secondly, we
What's
believe effective and accessible mental health care and thorough assessment are essential. Same with WPATH, it's right there with it. We believe debate, inquiry, and scientific methods are pillar of competent clinical practices. Agreed. We believe people's ability to consent to medical interventions is seriously hampered by the absence of proper and up to date research and long term studies, basically saying you cannot do informed consent because there's not enough information that is up to date and provided with that.
Well, and it's funny because this site is so freaking sneaky, right? Because it's like, yes, like you if there is an absence of proper up-to-date research, yes, it's tough to give informed consent. But what they're implying here is that in transgender care, there is not enough up-to-date research, and that is a complete lie.
There's not enough, though, and they're right in that regard, but they also want to discount any that says that transition is a viable form of intervention. They basically want to look at how can we keep people from transitioning into a different identity profile. They basically want to argue no, the only thing that we can be guaranteed is if we can get them doped up or we can get them talked up, then that's the only way we're going to keep them good. We must keep alive the decades of research into gender dysphoria, not because we consider this research to be complete or perfect, but because we see it as a vital foundation. This website is misleading and deceptive. If you are a transgender person or you know a transgender person who is quoting from the Gender Dysphoria Alliance, let them know that this is a deceptive website and it will not necessarily bring them to the conclusions that they would hope that a non-biased entity would.
Hmm. That's very sad and very scary. The deceptive tactics that they're using
Yeah.
for that. That's disheartening. All right. Louisiana students taken to transphobic church event instead of the career fair they were promised.
We were gonna. I forgot to include this one last week because this one was a big news story the prior week. But 2,100 seniors from the East Baton Rouge Parish School System were told that they were going to an event called the Day of Hope, which was billed as a college and career fair. The event was being held at Living Faith Christian Center in Baton Rouge, but it was sponsored by the Christian group 2911 mentoring program. What those seniors discovered when they arrived at that location was not information and content built around college or careers, but it was instead religious indoctrination. It was divided by gender, where girls were basically fed more purity culture bullshit. Boys were taught misogynistic, um, men rule kind of shit. And anyone who did happen to be transgender or non binary was treated to a not positive experience. Now, as far as the specific allegations, we don't have proof of any of those, but I will say this, that based upon what people were saying, this is a very general understanding of what was experienced by these seniors. It was not a college and career fair, but it was instead a push to make a religious pitch at 2,100 high school students. I am sick of this.
And the ridiculous thing again here, the hypocrisy. I have seen on cars a education not indoctrination sticker that is red. It's a Republican talking point, a Republican trope, and it's just like, yes, I totally agree. Education not indoctrination. Keep prayer and religion out of schools.
Yeah. I know, Luna, that it is more sinister than that, but I don't want to level any false allegations. I do try to provide as much evidentiary discussion as possible. If anybody challenged me on something, I will recant on that. But this is, I just tried to keep it a little more based in what could be proven.
That's scary to know that there could be even more in that way. I mean, the fact that they blatantly lied to get kids to come to this shows that's all the evidence you need that their points are bullshit.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't take anything other than just simple logic to understand that, like, if you have to lie to get these people to trick them to get them into this, it's indoctrination. It's false information.
Yeah.
It's something that people should not be listening to. All right. A conservative mama bear, she's part of this mama bear organization, struts in drag at school board meeting to protest a drag show that happened there.
Iowa Mama Bears was founded by Kimberly Reichs, and she attended the Ankeny School Board meeting. During the public comments portion of the meeting, she wanted answers about the outcome of an investigation into an after-school drag performance that was held by the school's Gay Straight Alliance. She says, where's the transparency in this? How are we going to entrust you, the board members, to do what is right for us parents and to make sure that the kids know what is right. So basically, she was there to argue that, you know, the the investigation by the school board was not being done in an open manner. It was not providing the answers that it was supposed to provide. But this is where things go a little bit sideways. Reichs accused a drag performer who appeared of being a satanic worshiper.
Mhm.
As another woman held a poster with the images of the performer, Reichs removed her jacket and sweatpants, revealing a costume similar to the one that the performer wore, a black one-sleeved leotard over opaque tights with knee-high boots. She asked, I want to know, does this outfit make you turn your head? Is this outfit appropriate for anybody here to see? Because if this makes your head turn, if this pisses you off, then it should. Because this guy walked into our school wearing exactly the same thing. My question is that, well, if she walked into a public school board meeting, isn't she just as guilty?
Right? There is that. There is that. I see making the point. Uh, this is where I get into another area I don't know if I want to talk about, because many of the drag shows that I've been to are often kind of a hypersexualized version of femininity, and I believe we have actually talked about this on here, and it's just interesting when they talk about doing it on school grounds and having the all ages things, having students there. It gets a little bit grayer for me.
Okay. The way that I look at it, I'm not going to challenge you on this because, we have our independent views on this.
Mhm. The drag storytelling, I feel like that's one where they're just conflating things that are ridiculous and saying that is inappropriate or whatever. It's just someone who's dressed in different clothes, like whatever. But a lot of these shows, like if you zoom in on the image, there's a pretty raunchy splits dance move that's done there. I don't know if that was actually done at this if that's a photo of what was done at this the drag show or not, how she got these photos, what they are. But um some of this stuff, like I can see where parents are kind of ticked off about this stuff.
Okay. So if you want to push, I'll push. Um, have you seen what dance troupes in high schools do these days?
The only thing that I have that's even close to that is we just watched Little Miss Sunshine recently. And I feel like that is like indicative of a trend of stuff that's been going on in like beauty pageants in high schools and cheerleading, things like this. Yeah.
So cheerleading is no longer cheerleading. Cheerleading is dance. And the dance that they do is not rah rah shish boom ba anymore. It is dance based upon what top choreographers do with music videos or with stage acts. These are not just simple little high kicks and movements.
Hmm.
All right. There are very suggestive and very questionable moves done by high school students in public. And yet, nobody is making a fuss about that, even though cheerleaders are wearing skimpy outfits, sometimes to the detriment of, they do it in the most impractical of weather.
Hmm.
And they are performing these moves that you might see on a music video.
Hmm.
So, can we have some? I don't care. If you want to ban kids from drag events, go right ahead. But let's ban those type of dance routines at high schools also.
Hmm. Or at the very least, come on, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the sexualization of kids and all of this, and the fact that yes, she's wearing this leotard, but there are, like you said, cheerleading outfits that don't have much more, you know, left to the imagination than what
And
she's wearing, and that, again, you're right, that's deemed as okay. A GOP candidate has is attacked for lessons that say gay people are the same as child molesters and rapists. Why is this same old trope kind of coming up again?
Republican gubernatorial candidate in Illinois. Wow. Um, State Senator Darren Bailey is challenging Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker for the governor's seat in Illinois. Bailey founded the Full Armor Christian Academy, which is a preschool through 12th grade school that says that it teaches kids the courage to act upon Christian values and beliefs. Now, the curriculum uses a curriculum developed by the Bob Jones University. And within that curriculum, it teaches that gay people are the moral equivalent of child molesters and that most slaveholders treated their slaves well. So the content of, this material is already questionable, but the school says that the Full Armor Christian Academy teaches that women in the workforce have been harmful to America, that evolution is not real, and basically wants to bring all of that information into his, or that opinion and that point of view into his race as the governor. Bailey has made education a central issue in the campaign. He goes about talking about having founded this school as, this is a qualification for him to talk about education reform. Now, the funny thing is that he does not have a 4-year degree. Now, I'm not saying that a person needs to have a 4-year degree to be a governor. Not at all. I believe that education has nothing to do with qualification. But to come forward and say that just because he has a very, very biased Christian academy that he helped found and uses a curriculum for an extreme right religious group, Christian religious group, that does not make it possible for him to use his religious viewpoints to dictate or shape any type of education reform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that comparison of LGBT folks to child molesters and rapists, and saying that we don't deserve any extra special rights than what they get. It's just it's sickening, and it's tiresome at this point, right? Back to talking about websites and cakes and things like that. Jack Phillips has appealed his ruling for discrimination against trans women.
So this is the guy who would not bake the cake for the gay couple. This is the one who started that whole issue and is now appealing a discrimination ruling on refusing to make a cake celebrating a transgender woman's transition. Autumn Scardina sued Phillips after he declined to provide the transition cake in 2017. It was to be pink with blue frosting. Phillips' wife initially accepted the order for the cake, but Scardina revealed the purpose for the design and the bakery turned her down. Phillips said he would not promote the idea that a person's sex is anything other than an immutable, God-given biological reality, and that being forced to do so would violate his free speech rights. A Denver district judge ruled that Phillips violated Colorado's anti-discrimination law that we talked about in an earlier case, which bans discrimination. Jones fined Phillips $500, and so Phillips filed an appeal to basically take it to a higher court. He says, "I'm faithful and hopeful that the court continues to respect Colorado's standing laws that say all people should be entitled to goods and services. on an equal basis and that the rights and dignities of LGBTQ people be maintained. That was from Scardina.
Oh, good.
Phillips said, "This is not just about Masterpiece Cake Shop. This is about the rights of all Americans." He said, "The shop cannot create every message that people ask us to create. It refuses some other orders, such as cakes with insulting messages, erotic cakes, or Halloween ones."
Well, there you have it. That
Yeah.
describes so much there. Just there.
And
All right.
once again, all right, let me just read this, okay? I want this to go into the record here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. No law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise of that. Once again, the Constitution does not protect your beliefs, it protects the practice of your religion.
And that's it. That's where it stops. And I'm getting really, really tired of people, of religious people, saying that, you know, uh, your God-given biological reality is it, and that's all that there is to be, and all there is to say. And it's just like, why don't you understand the hypocrisy in what you're saying, that if God made me this way, then this is what he intended. Like, if you say that God made me trans, God made me this way, and so just completely shoots your own argument
Right.
right in the foot. A trans woman made a map of affirming clinics. Hateful people turned it into a hit list. This is tragic. What happened here?
So some people may be familiar with Aaron Reed, who does a lot of uh, trans news, breaking news, does it through TikTok and Instagram and a few other outlets. Um, so Aaron put together a map um, when she found a gender affirming health center that provided informed consent around hormone replacement therapy and its effects. She wanted to see what she could do for the community and expanded that Google map to include 786 trans supportive clinics, LGBTQ community centers, and other services across the nation. A trans antagonistic website called the Gender Mapping Project, or the Gender Mapper, seemingly reposted Aaron's map, all of the errors that were in typo or anything like that, in order to help anti-trans activists name and shame doctors that support trans clients. The website's stated goal is to abolish the gender industry. So the website is, basically just throwing out the same fake news, the same falsehoods and exaggerations and fear mongering um, that other groups have done in the past. But in this case, they actually took Aaron's map and switched it over to their um, dissemination to be able to basically, you know, use that as a hit list. We actually talked about that website, by the way. I think it was back in the summer. We talked about the website that was essentially making a hit list, um, and I didn't know it was going to get that bad. But yeah, this is pretty sinister.
That's unfortunate, especially as I've been looking to really expand out our resources list on the web, and make it a place where people can come and find things. Of course, it's not a map that just lists them. You do have to do some searching, so that might make it a little bit more protective,
Yeah.
just slightly. But yeah, that's so typical and so disappointing. Just humanity is disappointing to me right now. Um,
Moments.
let's see, how did I rewrite this headline to make it a little bit better? So Herschel Walker's gay son says that his dad threatened to kill him and his mom as abortion news breaks. What's the story behind all this?
Okay, Christian Walker is the son of Herschel Walker, and Herschel Walker is running for Senate in Georgia. Also happens to be former NFL football player. Also happens to be pretty much identified as a horrible partner um, to domestic partners. But Christian Walker used his influential platforms to come out and basically just attack Herschel Walker. Um, and it was pretty nasty as this was spreading and going out. Christian claims that his father threatened to kill him and his mother because they were talking about the fact that Herschel Walker had multiple affairs, fathered multiple children while he was married to Christian's mother. So, um,
And that he paid for abortions, correct?
and that's the big one, is that there was one particular girlfriend that he paid for an abortion for this individual, and is basically came out and said that he is super, super pro abortion ban, that there are no exceptions for race, incest, or the life of the mother. Um, the woman kept the receipt from the clinic as well as the card that Herschel Walker sent to her. So, I mean, there's a little bit of a pushback and a back and forth on this, but Christian Walker is basically calling his father out and saying, "This is how horrible of an individual you are." And from what I saw this week, it's continuing.
I really hope that it has a very major negative effect on his campaign, because like we we see it in his rhetoric,
Mhm.
how bad of a person he is, but now you can actually see the hypocrisy and all of it just right out there. I am glad that this information has come out. It's sad to see that the people in Herschel's life have had to deal with this. Uh, and here we get into some stuff here. A volleyball team's locker room is shut down after teammates bullied and harassed a trans girl. And the follow-up part of this that's terrible is that the right-wing media got a hold of it and twisted it the opposite way and were attacking the girl as well.
Yeah. So this is an ongoing issue that's being investigated. There is a lot of he said, she said, she said involved in this. Um, so Randolph Union High School has had one of the locker rooms shut down while school officials are investigating an incident involving one of the trans athletes on the volleyball team. The athlete has not been disclosed. The name has not been disclosed. But what has come to light has been that one of the girls claimed that the trans athlete made inappropriate comments while the other girls were changing for practice, and went on to say that the trans athlete shouldn't be allowed in a girl's locker room, claimed other teammates and parents shared their concern. Um, Following complaints, the school sent out an email explaining that students have plenty of space where students who feel uncomfortable with the laws may change in privacy. Now, the mother of the trans girl um, came forward to say that um, her daughter was changing in the locker room before volleyball practice when three teammates began to yell at her to get out and stop looking at them. She said that the aggressive comments came as a surprise because she'd never really felt unwelcome before or like she didn't belong there. After the confrontation, her daughter chose to change in a bathroom stall. But the mother claims that her daughter wasn't sure if to put her team jersey on, so she popped her head around the corner to check in with teammates, only to find that they started yelling at her again. The volleyball coach overheard the yelling and told the trans student she planned on reporting the incident to the school's administration. 2 days later, an administrator called the mother to confirm that 3 people reported that her daughter had been bullied and harassed. This launched the investigation, meaning the teen could not be unsupervised in the locker room. So, according to the administrator, 3 people reported that the trans athlete had been bullied and harassed. And the school shut down the locker room to investigate the bullying and harassment issue. Now, this story goes on because right-wing media picked up on it. And I do believe that Caitlyn Jenner got involved.
Oh, great.
Yep. So in the aftermath of the false reporting, the trans student has been the victim of bullying from other students and parents who've labeled her a voyeur, a pervert, and a freak. So Caitlyn responded to the story saying, what is the school's solution to this? Well, let's ban the 10 girls who complain, the complainers, put them off in a corner in their own little part of the locker room, and don't do anything when it comes to this trans person. So honestly, everything is out of whack right now, and these things have to stop.
Wow. Yeah, of course she takes the side of the right-wing media, the Fox News, and not the actual facts of the case, which, as the article points out, or maybe it's the other article. There's 2 that we are talking about here that talk about this story. There was staff that were able to hear what was going on.
So
it's confirmed.
The WCAX CBS affiliate is pretty much the one that is responsible for how Caitlyn Jenner got a hold of it, because what they did is they took the school information and the girl that we quoted at the very beginning who was claiming to be harassed by the trans student. But the issue was the other way around, according to the school, that those students were harassing the trans student.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this has really gotten into a bad situation. I have a feeling that we're going to have we're going to have a lot of stuff to worry about on this.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of follow-up, I hope, but I can't imagine that much of it'll be good. So we'll just have to see. An anti-LGBTQ plus activist, Carolyn Farrow, rages against trans people as she's being arrested. Looks like in the UK.
Yes, exactly. Carolyn Farrow is a journalist and is a Catholic, anti-gay, anti-trans activist. She's the campaign director for the far-right lobby group Citizen Go. On Monday, 3rd of October, Farrow was describing how it was tea time and she was doing a roast chicken. When 2 police officers arrived at her home and told her she was being arrested. When read my rights and told that what I said could be used in evidence against me, I replied that women don't have a penis. I mean, if you're going to get anything into record, you may as well get that. The officer seized her electronic devices, and she claims they frisked her before taking her to the police station for questioning. So what has come about is that evidence led police to believe that Caroline Farrow was actually making posts on Kiwi farms. And, that they're investigating that, her involvement in that, to the point that there may have been threats and allegations of threats that could be committed against people. So they're looking at that right now. The police confirmed that investigation into malicious communications and harassment are the official investigation charges.
Well, good. Get her off the street. That's awesome. Take her away from. Take her electronic devices away so she can't harass people anymore. This one's fun. I really like this. I have liked Jon Stewart in the past. I've heard some negative things about him in recent times, the recent year or so. But Jon Stewart is tackling the transgender rights on his season premiere of The Problem with Jon Stewart. And if you've watched the clips, he does a really good job, and it's just like, yes, it's a good kind of win for trans folks and trans rights. What is going on in this article?
So, what really, you're right. Jon Stewart has had sort of a back and forth sort of situation with trans jokes, jokes regarding transgender people. Mm-hmm. But in this particular episode, what he tried to do is he tried to get to the heart of what is going on in this paradigm shift that we're experiencing right now. This is what he said: whatever discomfort we may feel in the changing norms of reality, myself included, it is no match for the discomfort and fear felt by those seeking acceptance. And as part of doing that, he got into the anti-trans legislation. And he went right to the very first state that passed any gender-affirming anti-trans legislation, Arkansas, and brought Attorney General and Lieutenant Governor campaigner Leslie Rutledge, brought her to task, whooped her up one side, down the other, left her so discombobulated that she nearly lost her composure, started almost yelling at him in his show, until she finally caught a breath and realized, oh shit. The best line in the whole entire fucking interview, Leslie Rutledge is going on and saying that, they have these experts who help them know certain things, and they know that 98% of young people experiencing gender dysphoria can move past that. And Jon Stewart looks at her and says, wow, that's an incredibly made up figure. And I mean, I can't imagine. The cameraman probably just went, holy fuck. I mean,
it's
great to have had a sphincter camera on Leslie Rutledge to see how far her anal sphincter got sucked up into her digestive system, because I know the moment he said that, she was like, what the hell did he just say to me? And she just nearly got onto a ride on that one. She is currently the Attorney General. She is seeking the office of Lieutenant Governor for Arkansas.
Ridiculous. Students staged a walkout to protest Arizona's new anti-LGBTQ laws. Another walkout. I love this. What's going
on? Students of at least 6 Arizona schools walked out to protest the anti-LGBTQ laws that have been passed in Arizona. More than 100 students walked out of Hamilton High in Chandler. The demonstration was organized by Support Equality Arizona Schools, an organization founded by 16-year-old high school student Dawn Shim to advocate for minority and LGBTQ students. She said, the bills are killing us. They are killing our peers. We do not need any more students hurt by your actions. We aren't out here missing our school day and interrupting our education because we want to. We have been forced into it. Across America, more and more anti-LGBTQ legislation is being passed by the people sworn in to protect us. We also have a burgeoning mental health crisis among teens. The two factors are not coincidental. The Trevor Project finds that in 2022, almost 45% of LGBTQ youth considered suicide in the last year. So across town, another 200 students staged a simultaneous walkout. And it's wonderful to see student activism. It's wonderful to see these people going out there and saying, look, you are not going to do this to us.
Mhm.
Now they will continue to try, but these kids are going to step up. And when they cross that 18-year-old mark and they have that voter card in their hand, they are going to make a change and they are going to fuck things up. Which more power to them. Godspeed.
I hope so. So interesting aside here, we did a story. I think it was very early in the year. I had brought one in where a friend had shown on Facebook the form that they were sent, where they had to ask, or they had to sign and approve their student to go into a home ec class where they were going to be talking about, they were going to be handling chickens and cooking and talking about the word breast,
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of the ridiculous thing of how reactive the right has been in that area. It is this area. My friends live in that area. Their daughter is, I don't believe, is high school age yet, but I have to check with my friend and do a follow up on this article to find out on the ground kind of what's going on there and
Yeah.
what she's hearing, what they're hearing as parents in this school area where this is all going down. Because yeah, there's some crazy things, y'all. But it's great to see the students are saying no.
Yeah.
We're gonna fight this. We're gonna stand up against this. I support this wholly.
Yeah.
M&M's introduced new purple candy character. Conservatives are suggesting she's transgender. Uh, I had heard something about this. What is going on here? Big sigh. All right, let's get ready.
M&M has introduced a new purple peanut shaped chocolate candy.
And first off, just as another aside, it's about damn time. We had two browns for decade upon decade. We've needed a purple for a long time.
No, 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 sweetie. No, no, no. We don't need we don't want to start that argument here. But okay, first of all, imagine this. This is about a purple peanut shaped chocolate candy. M&Ms. We're talking about M&Ms. Um, Conservatives are convinced that because it is represented as a femme presenting individual in advertisement, but it possesses a peanut, it therefore must be transgender.
That's the tie-in they're doing. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Mars Candy released this statement. Mars is thrilled to debut the newest member of the M&M's cast of characters to the world. There is so much about our new spokes candy that people can relate to and appreciate, including her willingness to embrace her true self. Our new character reminds us to celebrate what makes us unique. The latest spokes candy, Mars said, was designed to represent acceptance and inclusivity. Our newest member is known for her earnest self expression, keen self awareness, authenticity, and confidence are the driving forces behind Purple's charm and quirky nature. So over on OAN, the host said, I think it's a female character. M&M's candy falls victim to woke mob again. I'm pretty sure they haven't said it. Maybe it's transgender. The lavender hued candy's pronouns are a chocolatey her and she. Her sexual orientation is left to the eater's imagination. Her purplish shade and the company's global commitment to creating a world where everyone feels they belong and society is inclusive is a hint.
And again, just a big dog whistle for the right anti-woke
Yeah.
snowflake brigade.
Yeah. So this is the very first female peanut candy.
Really, the other ones have not had the peanut. Okay, but
Yellow is a peanut.
yellow's a peanut. Green is not a peanut, and green and yellow are both male.
Um, Purple is the third female in the lineup, joining brown and green, and is the very first female peanut.
Mm-hmm.
So, um,
So I guess blue. What is blue? I think blue's a regular non-peanut male. Green is a non-peanut male. So again, their argument makes no sense. Your argument invalid.
I mean, here's the thing. We know that we are the conservative and Christian nationalist boogie persons. We know that. They know that they see us creeping around everywhere and that we are in some way creating this insidious movement to transform every kid in the world into a trans kid. They have already deemed us as demonic and hateful. They have deemed us as foolish and mentally ill. But we are not going after the fucking peep bunny rabbits at Easter when it's about a dude walking out of a hole in the ground. So let us have our purple candy. Y'all have your peeps. Leave us the fuck alone.
You got to be stooping pretty low and be in a pretty dire situation to be attacking a certain to be attacking a fictitious candy character.
Now, wait. I want to take this one step further.
We can do this. We've got 9 more minutes to do 3 articles. I think we can get through it. Go for it.
Okay, this is the last thing I want to say on this. M&Ms are veterans. They are attacking veterans. They should know better than this. M&Ms are veterans, and conservatives should stay away from them.
They were created for the military.
They were created for the military in World War II. So not only are they veterans, they're veterans of the Great Wars.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and now you shot my anti-Brown argument all to hell. Although I wasn't anti-Brown, I was just pro-purple. Let's say that. Virgin Atlantic removes gendered uniform policy. Yay! And will now let employees wear pronoun badges. Double yay. What's going on here as we dive in deeper?
So, Virgin Atlantic said that has come out to make these changes, citing a study that found that staff mental well-being increases 49% when they are allowed to embrace their individuality at work. It also found that staff happiness increases by 65% and customer experience improves by 24%. So, pronoun badges will also be available, will be available to staff, but also to customers who can ask for one at the check-in desk.
That is lovely. Oh, I'm so
excited. Customers with gender-neutral markings on their passports will also be able to select gender-neutral markers for their ticket booking. So, basically what they're doing is they're saying, look, we believe the science that says that people do better when they're able to be themselves. And Virgin Atlantic is, doing what many others should do, and that is listen to what makes for the better well-being.
Mm-hmm. And I love that in that study, what they're talking about, their talking points, this affects their staff's well-being greatly. That a 65% increase is massive, and a 24% increase in the satisfaction of their clients. That is huge. And these are the sorts of numbers that are going to move the needle for corporations, providing these sorts of things, and helping further trans rights on the ground. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on, a trans girl was elected homecoming princess as a joke. She decided to accept it and take it as an honor with grace and use it as an opportunity to promote acceptance. What is going on here? How can we celebrate her?
Cassie Steiner um, goes to Marymount High School, uh, which is a suburb of Cincinnati. And Steiner came out as a trans girl in April and began her social transition in June. A school guidance counselor called Cassie's mother and told her that Cassie had been elected as a mean spirited joke. Um, the counselor said that Cassie could opt out of it. Cassie said Cassie and her mother talked about it, and they said that she was not going to opt out. She didn't hesitate to own the fact that she was not going to back down. Kat told the paper about her daughter, Cassie. She knew she was going to be a trailblazer. I think the school has been ill prepared for this. I think this is political, and not just in Marymount, but across the nation. It's a tough position for the school to be in, and I recognize that. I'm sensitive to that. I'm trying very hard to give grace and allow the school time to figure out what the next steps are. At the same time, I will never call Marymount progressive. So Kat made the family's views clear on Facebook, saying Cassie is taking the high ground and making history as trans royalty. She's owning her title as the sophomore homecoming princess because, well, when they go low, we go high. We choose to celebrate. I've asked for one of the top 3 administrators to escort her as a sign of solidarity, as there will not be a sophomore prince. None of the 4 nominated males accepted the title.
It's just terrible that none of them accepted it, out of transphobia. And the great follow up of that was that 3 top administrators walked with her.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a great story.
Yeah,
because she used it to make a great story.
Yes. Yeah, it was a great opportunity for her, and I'm so glad that her and her mom saw that and seized it, and we're able to sort of throw a big middle finger at those people and say, I'll ride on the car in the parade. You don't want to be there with me? I'll ride by myself and get all of the attention. That's fine.
Absolutely.
Just make her look that much better. I love it. And then finally, a news channel celebrates the reporter who came out as trans in a heartwarming segment.
So Noah Reichert has worked at Local 5 News in Iowa since July of 2021. In a 16-minute segment, the station celebrated Nora's transition and gave her the opportunity to tell her story. One of the other correspondents said, "You have welcomed her into your homes for the past year. Tonight, Local 5's Nora Reichert wants you to meet the real Nora, her true self." And then it was a video talking about her coming out and embracing her identity. She talks about depression and anxiety, about her fears that there would not be a place for her if news came out. She talks about medical transition, shows photos of her transformation. Local 5 also filmed her filing the paperwork to have her name legally changed. She also showed the camera her transition to-do list, which included figuring out her dress size, drafting coming posts for social media, planning how to come out at work, and vocal training.
Figure out how to come out at work.
To see this.
I thought she did that.
Do what?
Figuring out how to come out at work. Oh, I guess these could have been things that she's checked off.
I think this was her list as it went through from the very beginning. So I would think that she knew what her dress size was if she has been doing the news for a while now.
Wonderful. Such a wonderful story.
It is. And, again, representation matters.
And that acceptance from her organization and the fact that they're willing to put it out there right out front is wonderful. And I really appreciate them for doing that. Local 5 News, we'll have to check them out.
Geez, Rosa, why are you yelling, sweetie? God.
Rosa still hasn't come out everywhere yet. We've been talking about this for a year, Rosa. A year. Sheesh.
But we love and support you. You come out in your time, honey. Don't listen to the mean Emily lady.
We love you, Rosa, very, very
Yes,
much. All right, y'all. Unless you have anything else to add, Genevieve.
I'm all good.
For Genevieve Bergman, for Kari Aiden in the production booth, I'm Emily Michelle, wishing you good night and good news. Thank you, everybody.